big star out of me. They'll make a film about a man who's sad and lonely, and all they gotta do is act naturally. Well, I'll bet you I'm gonna be a big star. Might win an Oscar, you can never tell. The movie's gonna make me a big star.
Welcome to Meet Me at the Movies. We're already having fun right here. I am not Greg Tillman, even though it says so.
And you
right
don't want to be. You really don't
Noel,
want to be.
I am Noel T. Manning II, hanging out with Greg Tillman, otherwise known as Detective John McClane from the NYPD. He has stopped all sorts of terrorist attacks throughout the world.
Yippee-tie, no, I can't.
No, you
I
can't go there. This
No.
is a G-rated show, at least PG, for that matter. But welcome to Meet Me at the Movies right here, C19TV, Cleveland Community College. A lot of TV shows happen here.
Absolutely.
And where can they find those shows archived online?
C19.TV.
And that's right. Is Tim Foster? Is that correct? Is that the correct email? I'm sorry, the correct URL. Yeah. We're still trying to figure out this.
He's our fact checker.
We're trying to figure out this whole World Wide Web thing because it's only been 30 years. We're still in the infancy of it. You know, you would think it's a young adult.
I hear broadband is nice. I still have dial-up.
I got the dial-up too.
Yeah.
I just love the tones.
Exactly. I was thinking the same thing. I love the sound.
I love the tones.
No kidding. The first time I heard that,
Yeah.
I just thought that was the most exciting thing.
Oh yeah. Well, the first time I heard it, the dial-up stuff, I was in a math class in high school, and we had like the phone modems, and you would take the phone and you would attach it to this little device, and then you would dial up and you hear.
Is this in the 40s?
What?
The 40s?
Yeah, it sure was. Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds like it.
The first games I ever played, we didn't go on there for work. We get on for games, which is still what happens now. But it was a Star Trek game, but you would have to like punch in your code for like, okay, I'm firing a photon. And then you would have to wait and see what happened on the other end, and then you'd get the, you know, it's like, you missed. You know, it's like, then you go, okay, go north. You know, it was really a lot of fun.
It's the anticipation that made it so exciting.
Exactly. Yeah. We've come a long way, and because of that, we're able to do this show and have email. And we did get we got non-viewer email.
More?
No, this was a few weeks ago.
Oh, okay, I thought
non-viewer
we had more.
email at info@c19.tv, and they said, you did this trilogy special. Would you be willing to do a sequel? And we said, you know what, we'll do a three-parter at some point. You know, we'll do 3 of them, because if you're going to do trilogies, you got to do 3.
That does make sense.
So this is Trilogies part2 that we're going to be doing.
Is that French?
He spoke French.
But the cool thing about this is, if you didn't see the first one, it still doesn't matter. You know, you could watch these in any
And they
way.
probably didn't.
They probably didn't. But we did have a big list, and we
Yeah.
could not get to all of our movies. And Tim was really upset because we did not ask him to supply films last time. And so he said, here's my list. And so some of these have the films that Tim recommended as well.
And some didn't. We should have specified ratings.
Yeah, we should have. That's exactly right. Yeah, and I know. I'm sorry, man. We can't. This is a family-oriented trilogy special. You have to go somewhere else for what you're looking for. All right? Not going to do that here. Not going to do it here.
I think we just wrecked his week.
So let's dive into Film Trilogies Part 2, even though if you didn't see Part 1, it still doesn't matter. So
No, you always start with me. You go this time.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, sure.
On my list that we did not get to last time, we'll go ahead and dive into Die Hard. John McClane.
All right.
Although there have been more than 3 Die Hard films, it keeps ticking, keeps finding a way to tick. Those first 3 were really solid, and if you look back at the very first Die Hard when it was released, that and a little movie called Rambo were 2 films that really changed the action landscape at that time. But Die Hard was it was action, it was comedy, and it was Bruce Willis. And at that time, you know, Bruce Willis just couldn't do wrong.
No, he couldn't.
And so I'll say those first 3, and Samuel L. Jackson would show up in that third one as well. And they had a good buddy comedy chemistry thing going on. So the Die Hard films, especially the first 3, are on my list.
I'll agree. The second one is kind of underrated, I think. It doesn't seem to get a lot of love. And I enjoyed the second one, maybe more than the third. Now the fourth one, what, Live Free and Die Hard,
Yes.
that came out many years later.
Yes.
I thought was really good.
I did too. I did
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
And then the other one that came out with his son in the picture, I thought was really solid as well.
Yeah.
So we're talking about franchises and not just trilogies, but without those first three, we would have never had the franchise
True,
we've seen.
true,
So well done, Bruce Willis.
There was a show on ABC that only ran 6 episodes when I was in college, starring Leslie Nielsen.
Yes.
That the Zucker, you didn't see that one coming, did you?
No.
The Zucker brothers produced as their first effort on television after the success of Airplane in 1980, I think, or 81. Leslie Nielsen starred as Frank Drebin, and it was called Police Squad.
Yes.
And it was so funny and
Yes.
so good, you knew it wouldn't last. Then it
Yes.
didn't, 6 episodes. But a couple years later, they rebooted it as a movie franchise. Well, what became a franchise, a trilogy, with The Naked Gun from the Files of Police Squad. One of the funniest movies ever, I think. It
Really
really
is.
is. And the sequel, what was it? It was like
2.5.
2.5.
Yeah.
Naked Gun 2.5.
And then
it was
33
just
and a
as funny.
third.
33 and a third, actually, I like better than 2.5. But taken together, even individually, it's just stupid, out loud, gut busting.
It is
funny.
It is, especially if you like parodies,
Yeah.
you like spoofs.
Yeah.
If you don't, this
Yeah.
is not the kind of comedy for you.
Yeah.
But it's very physical. What I love about spoofs and parodies is it's physical comedy. It's also auditory comedy. By that I mean there's a lot of play on words.
Yep.
And you know you think back to the people like Groucho Marx. You think back to the physical humor of the Buster Keatons, and all of those things combined show up in Naked Gun.
Well, I
love those.
always said the Zucker sense of humor, at least their style, is very reminiscent and I think inspired by the Marx Brothers.
I
like,
agree.
Like Duck Soup, for
Yeah,
instance.
I agree.
If you don't laugh at one joke, 5 seconds later you'll laugh at the
Yeah.
next one, probably.
Yeah, I absolutely
Just a
agree.
lot of fun.
I loved it. Yeah, I absolutely. It's on my list too, and I'm glad we got to
yeah.
that. Another one that's on my list that's a fun film. A movie called Shrek was released,
Okay.
and it was nobody really knew what to expect from this. Mike Myers doing voice, Eddie Murphy doing voice talent on this. It was a very twisted look at fairy tales, and it took this fairy tale concept and flipped it upside down and had a heck of a lot of fun with it, and it became this huge success for that year. Had a great soundtrack as well. It took all of your nursery rhyme characters, brought them into one universe, and changed things around a little bit, and spawned several successful sequels as well. I think the casting, the voice talent casting of all of these, very well done. John Lithgow was in this, and
Fiona is Cameron Diaz? Okay,
yeah. So it has some great talent in this, and also Antonio Banderas as Puss in Boots.
That was a nice addition.
It really was, and that spawned a spin-off film as well. So Shrek on my list of film trilogies, definitely worth checking out.
Right. Oh, gosh. I'm going to stay in the stupid comedy vein one more time. There have been a lot of Pink Panther films, all of them played by Peter Sellers as Inspector Clouseau, with the exception of Alan Arkin in '64 with A Shot in the Dark. That's not what you were thinking. You're thinking of the latter two from maybe 10 years ago with Steve Martin.
Steve Martin.
And I'm talking about the Peter Sellers Pink Panthers. Because there were so many, I know that's not a trilogy, but I'm going to take the middle 3 of their most successful years.
Okay.
The Sellers doing it, and that was the Pink Panther, Return of the Pink Panther, and my all-time favorite, the Pink Panther Strikes Back. That's when Inspector Dreyfus goes off the rails, and
He really goes off the rails.
oh, he's in a castle with an organ and this disappearing machine, and it's ridiculous, and it's so funny. And Sellers is at his. Everyone's at their peak right there. I think that's the best of all of them.
I agree, and I think
And Revenge of afterwards with Christopher Plummer and Diane Cannon again, but the Strikes Back is wonderful. All three of those.
What I loved about the Pink Panther films is you did not have to watch the prequels before them in order to appreciate it.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, maybe you appreciated it more, but you didn't have to because they were kind of these standalone mysteries combined in this just outrageous comedy. And Sellers was great across the board, really, in anything that he ever did.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite films with him was a very subtle comedy dramedy that was shot at the Biltmore House with
Being
Shirley
There.
MacLaine.
being there. He was
being
got a
there.
Best Actor nomination.
Yeah,
for
that was just a beautiful film. But Peter Sellers absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely amazing.
And don't forget Cato.
Cato.
Yeah,
I gotta love
his
Cato.
manservant. Yeah,
Absolutely. Well, this is actually one of the things I did not mention is during the first show I mentioned, first time we did the trilogy special, I said that this was not just our list, it was also culminated from critics and also film fans alike. Well, this next one comes from a film fan and a film critic from the UNC Charlotte area. He was a reporter for UNC Charlotte. His name's Hunter. I'm not going to give your last name because I don't want people seeking you out, but I guess if they type in Hunter and Google UNC Charlotte film critic, they'll find you. But he said that one of his favorite trilogies was the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the Swedish versions.
Okay.
He said really, really fascinating, amazing work, and the American versions don't really match up to the Swedish versions of that.
Let me ask you
film.
a quick question about this for people that don't like foreign language films. Is it in Swedish?
It is.
And I know that sounds
It is.
stupid, but my son was in Sweden last
Yep.
fall. He said most people spoke English.
Yep, it is. Yeah, and it's subtitled. And I think this goes back to what we talked about before. I think really solid films, if you've got the patience and if you can stay off your mobile
Right.
device and your laptops and your iPads and your Kindles long enough to engage in a film, which is the way films are intended. They're intended really for you to sit and watch through. I think international films, if the story's there, it goes back to the story, goes back to the script.
Always.
If it's there, if it's solid, and it can be compelling, other things are gravy. And so the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the Swedish versions, were worth checking out. Hunter, thanks for sending that our way. And I will say the American versions are worth checking out as well. There was one just released with Claire Foy not too many decades ago.
Right.
And I would say that was worth checking out also. Well, you want to go ahead and take a break, or do you want to come back if you got another one you
No,
want to
let's
dive
go ahead and
into?
take a break.
Okay, we're going to take a break right here, a little intermission right here on C19 TV's Meet Me at the Movies. I appreciate you being with us. Tim, how you doing, buddy? All right, good. You still awake?
I was going to ask him the same thing.
Yeah, still good. He's still awake. I'm glad to hear it. Have we
looks a
talked
little
about
groggy, though.
have we talked about any of your trilogies yet? Yes, good. I'm glad because okay.
Jaws?
Jaws. Okay, no, we didn't talk about it. I'm
Flipper?
sorry. I didn't know we were doing charades.
Was there a
I had
Flipper trilogy?
No idea. Two words. It smells like tuna.
Don't
Die
ask.
Hard. Okay,
Don't
Die
ask
Hard.
that one.
Yeah, okay. Naked Gun. That's what it was. The Naked Gun. All right, no, keep your clothes on. We're
What's
going to go
the
to a
deal with-
break.
This
right
means Naked Gun.
We'll be back with more.
The worst charades player I've ever seen.
Let's get ready to rumble!
I was saddened whenever somebody yelled at lock her up when Hillary was introduced, and I just thought that was out of
That was uncalled.
Was that
She got
you,
tongue-
Wayne?
No, it wasn't me, but I believe that she should be locked up.
Well, let's.
We're at the train wreck. Wes is right, and so
That's 2 weeks in a row he said I've been right. I'm gonna have to do.
I tell you,
I'm gonna have to
Wes Barlett
reassess
is
a little bit
jihad
here.
to there.
Be a part of building the future. Be a welder. The welding technology program at Cleveland Community College prepares you with the science, the technology, and the skills to be a successful welder. Experienced instructors using state-of-the-art equipment train students using industry standard skills developed through classroom training and practical application. Successful graduates are in high demand and are employed as entry-level technicians in welding and metalworking industries. Learn more. Call Cleveland Community College at 704-669-4077.
Education is our most powerful tool to improve and change our world. Hi, I'm Rhonda Benfield, your host for School Matters. Join me for a new program every other week with information from and about the students and staff of Cleveland County Schools. Discover what our schools are doing to challenge students and help them reach their full potential. You can catch us on Spectrum Cable Channel 19 or stream us live on C19TV.
They're gonna put me in the movies. They're gonna make a big star out of me.
Welcome back to Meet Me at the Movies. We are still laughing because we were trying to figure out this whole charades thing with Tim Foster.
Before we go even farther, we've got to figure out what that's about. Tim, what's this
what
mean
is
again?
It? What is it? So it's not the Naked Gun. It's, okay.
Airplane?
Airplane. No, it's not. What? Yeah, it is an airplane. It's not an airplane.
It's a Hawaiian.
It's flying. Okay, it is about an airplane, but it's okay. What do you do in the?
It's
airplane?
Hawaiian Airlines.
What? I don't. Is it the Die Hard films? Yes. Okay, the Die Hard films.
He must have been asleep when we already talked about that.
And see, the thing is, the airplane, that was only in what, the second one?
All that
So-
for something we've already talked about?
Exactly.
I thought he was going all right.
You know, he could have just done this, like, he could have, and then fallen down hard, Die Hard. I mean, that would have been the recommendation I would have given for you. So I know your wife says that you're the worst at charades.
I so want to play charades with both of you guys some Saturday night.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. Well, if you're just tuning in after the intermission, we're talking about film trilogies, and this is part 2. But again, it doesn't matter if you've ever seen part 1
Right.
or part uno. You can still enjoy this show, or maybe you can't. I don't know.
It's hard.
But we're having fun, and honestly, that's really all that matters for these 30 minutes.
Yeah, today.
So, Mr. Tillman, give me another film trilogy on your list.
I'm going to go with the Jurassic Park trilogy, the first 3.
Okay.
Not the reboot with Chris Pratt, although they're fine.
Yeah,
they're fine.
I agree.
They'd lost the novelty, of course, that the original had. I remember
But
being.
they rebooted the novelty for a new
well,
generation.
yeah. You're probably the same way. I remember the first time I saw Jurassic Park in the theater, slam full of
Yep.
people that night.
Yep.
And the first time you get ready to, you hear the T-Rex
Yes.
approaching, and you see the water rippling
Oh.
on the ground. And then when you see it and you hear it, the audience, you could have dropped a pin. It was, no one had seen anything like
No,
that before.
no.
That detail, that photorealistic, it was jaw-dropping. It really was. Plus the story was great anyway.
It was, and but that is a film where it's a combination of the digital effects and the sound design and the musical score. All of those combined really make
Oh,
that
and
film.
you got
the
Spielberg
casting.
at the helm too.
Yeah,
of
and the
course.
casting was solid. But
Yeah.
I remember going to see that, like you said, in the theater. And beforehand, this was a brand new theater. It was in Charlotte. It was a place called the Arboretum. I don't
Yeah,
even know if it's
okay.
still there anymore. But they actually, it was like one of the opening weekends for that. And the guy who was doing the projector said, "Hey, do you want to come up and see our setup?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I do." So he showed me everything they were doing. And that was, they used to have a CD drive backup for just the audio.
Oh, I didn't
So
know
if for
that.
any reason the film wasn't working, it would automatically make sure it kicked in to that. It was synced up, and I
Wow.
was just blown away.
Yeah.
But yeah, the sound for that. And if you really are interested in sound design, I'd recommend doing a Google search for best sign designed films of all time, and you're going to see some really interesting things they do with Foley, which is where they create a lot of these sound effects. Fascinating.
I'll bet.
But Jurassic, the Jurassic films, I highly recommend that as
And
well.
the second one was fine.
Oh yeah.
Spielberg directed that one, although I prefer the third one over the second one.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll give that to you.
Pterodactyls.
Well,
You can't go wrong with pterodactyls.
Taya Leone.
Can't go wrong with
Exactly.
Tara Leone or pterodactyls. You get them together in a movie, it's about as good as it gets.
Well, on my list, and this has nothing to do with because my cousin worked on all 3 of these films. Shout out to Trey Brown. But the Planet of the Apes reboots, the Caesar reboots, Andy Serkis, his talent as far as acting and also acting and becoming the apes, not just one ape, but
Right.
many of these apes with the motion capture suits. Unbelievable. And the stories, the way they brought these stories back to life in a different way. Absolutely love these films. I grew up on the originals. I grew up on the original TV series, Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
But when this came back and it rebooted, it did so with just precision, and it did so with a very complete story arc and character arc. And
Right.
you walk away from that third movie, The War for the Planet of the Apes, and you can't help but have some sweat in your eyeballs. It's emotional, and you really get pulled into the characters. So big fan of the Planet of the Apes films, really the originals and the reboots.
You mentioned the series. Did you see the series?
Oh, yeah,
You would
I
have been
remember
really
the
young.
series.
It was only on one season.
Yeah, I
Pretty
remember
good, though. And I think it's on Hulu, maybe.
Yeah, you can get it.
Yeah,
I actually owned the series.
Really?
And there was also an animated series.
Yeah, I
for it
remember that
as
when I
well.
was a kid. The Terminator series. I didn't see the first one in the theater. I was working at a video store and when I was in my early 20s, and it hit the shelves, and it was going out like crazy. And I thought, let's see what it's about. Yeah. Well, the first one was great. Just nothing wrong with it. It really is a tight little lean story in a way. Action from start to finish. The second one came out a few years later. Fantastic.
Yeah.
It took the whole franchise to another level. And much deeper, too.
Yep.
Cameron had matured as a filmmaker. He created the technology to get the look he wanted. And it's just awesome. The third one, okay.
Yeah.
One of the best images I can think of in any film is Schwarzenegger with a coffin on his shoulder and a machine gun in one hand, walking through a cemetery.
Yes.
What a great image.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, the second one, I do want to make mention of that second one especially because it took action to another level.
Right.
Which we talked about earlier with Die Hard, but this took it up a notch even more. And the special effects for that film would have never happened were it not for a little small film shot in Gaffney, South Carolina called The Abyss.
Right.
Where that technology where Cameron was just really starting to play around with that kind of morphing digital technology, and it really did come home strong in Terminator 2.
Yeah.
So good choice on that. I want to make sure I got this because I teased this on another show when we got a chance to interview the filmmakers for How to Train Your Dragon. We interviewed the director and voice talent for that, and that trilogy is really, really fascinating and just amazing. It's a story and a story arc that can speak to children, it can speak to adults, and it can speak to kind of everybody in between. And I've talked to teenagers who have kind of grown up on these films and just are in love with them. And so the How to Train Your Dragon series, the trilogy, a truly complete trilogy, and the director talked about wanting to have a complete trilogy that even if there was nothing else that came after, that you felt satisfied, that you felt like, yes, it did exactly what I wanted it to do. Have you seen
I have not seen any of them. The first one came out around the time that Alex and Kate were maybe a little old.
Yeah.
At least they thought they were too old to want to see it. And I just never went there, but I should, I guess. I've heard so many
You
good
really
things
need to
about
go
it.
back to it. A wonderful story and fun characters and very engaging plots as well. Tim, did you say that you did see the How to Train Your Dragon films? Yeah, and you liked them, didn't you? But not as much as the Die Hard. Oh, a dragon! That's what it was. The dragon's flying. The dragon's flying. That's what he's trying to talk about the whole time.
Drunk dragons?
Drunk dragons?
What's
Is that what that is?
I'm still trying to figure that one out.
No. All right, what else is on your list?
So is a flying dragon similar to a pterodactyl?
It could be.
Okay. All right.
Absolutely. Yeah, I
Okay.
think so.
You-
Yeah,
you
they've
sold-
got similarities. Yeah.
Sold.
They're cousins.
Not a huge Ben Stiller fan, actually,
Okay.
but I did enjoy the night at the museum movies.
Yeah, I did too.
The first one was fun.
Yep.
The second one, actually, I thought was a little better when they took it to the Smithsonian.
Yep.
Robin Williams was a great Teddy Roosevelt. There were a lot of good things about both of those movies. The third one, kind of tired, I guess,
Yeah, I
by
agree.
then. But you still had Dick Van Dyke popping up.
Yeah, and you had
And
Freddie Mercury.
Nothing wrong with that.
Freddie Mercury was there singing Bohemian Rhapsody.
Wait a minute. What? No, that's Wayne's World.
Oh no!
What? No,
Oh,
what?
but Rami Malek. Rami Malek was the Egyptian.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
see?
I didn't remember Freddie
that was
Mercury
Freddie
in the
Mercury.
Smithsonian.
Yeah, the first two.
You're right. I forgot about
The
that.
first two, favorite of my kids,
Yeah.
and for me. I mean, good family films. Third one, I kind of felt okay. That one, I think the third one had Amy Adams, didn't it? As Amelia Earhart.
Again, can't go wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amy Adams. No, I think that was the second one.
Was it the second one?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
But anyway, yeah, great choice. This is a film. This is actually a film trilogy that was recommended from several people. Ethan Hawke, Julia Depley in this film trilogy, the Before trilogy, Before Sunrise, Before Sunset, and Before Midnight. Just a realistic relationship series of dramas, and combined, it is a fascinating journey of the series of relationships. I think that's probably the simplest way to describe it, wouldn't you say?
Yeah,
for those
I
films?
saw the first one, and it was absolutely lovely.
Yeah.
And I have not seen the other two, and they're
Yeah.
supposed to be just as good.
They are,
a lot of improvised dialogue, I think,
yeah.
to the point that the actors got screenwriting
Yeah.
credits for it.
Yeah. But wonderful films, and thanks to everybody. And I'm not going to start mentioning names because I had quite a few people that mentioned that was that film trilogy was on their list. Others on your list you want to make sure you get to? We've still got a few minutes.
We're about out of time. I'm going to mention the Alien.
Okay.
The first three, at least the first two. The first one was just a nice, lean,
It was a
scary
gothic-
haunted house kind of movie
Yeah, it was a
in
gothic
way.
horror film.
Yeah. It was Sigourney Weaver's great. The Alien was great. Ridley Scott was great. The second one, they doubled down on everything that worked and added more, of course, more aliens. And that was a lot of fun too. And that was Cameron again as well. James Cameron directed the second one. The third one,
But the first two.
Yeah, the first two.
First two.
Can you count the first two out of it? Does that still make a good trilogy?
2 out of 3.
Yeah, okay.
2 out of 3. Sure.
right.
We're making this up as we go along. So absolutely.
Our rules.
Well, I'm gonna do a little something here too. That's I'm gonna rock the boat just a little bit. The Mad
Don't rock
Max
the boat,
films.
baby.
The Mad Max films 1, 2, and 4.
Not Thunderdome.
Thunderdome.
Tina Turner.
To me,
Okay.
it was a different kind of Mad Max film.
All right, yeah.
The first one, highly independent, very raw film.
Yeah.
Road Warrior became, it took it kind of the James Cameron kind of route. It infused a lot more money into it, a lot more action, a lot more energy, things that you could afford to do. And Thunderdome became, to me, it was too pop. It was too pop, if that makes sense. But Fury Road, just a few years ago, when it came back and found a way to kind of relaunch it, it just, even though Mel Gibson wasn't in that role, it didn't matter.
It's like a fever dream.
Oh man,
In
I
a
tell you.
way.
Yeah, but I'm a fan of the Mad Max franchise, but especially those 3 out of the 4. I think we have time for one more. Do you want to? You have any others? That you wanna...
I'm actually reaching the bottom of the list. I hesitate to mention the Austin Powers series because I think the second and third were weaker, but the first one's so darn funny.
So it's worth it just for watching the first one?
Yeah, I know, and I guess you could say, well, I'll just watch the first one and forget the other two. but if you see the first one, you kind of have to follow through with the other 3. The second and third was a little derivative, I thought, but it had its laughs.
Yeah, okay.
But the first one was just really funny.
Oh, it was.
In a
It
very
was.
stupid way.
Yeah. And you know what? That's what it's all about. And I did have somebody that sent me a text while you were talking, said if I didn't talk about the Matrix trilogy, they would never watch the show again.
Speaking one good one and the others not so.
I'm right there with you. I think it was 1.5 good ones. But the Matrix trilogy, for those of you that are sci-fi fans, and I will say that first one broke some tremendous ground.
Yes.
And so from a technology standpoint and a visual standpoint, it's worth watching for that. Well, thank you for joining us for part 2 of the favorite trilogies of all time. We got through a big list, and if we do a part 3, we're going to have to really shake things up. And I think the worst trilogies of all time might be the route to go.
Although by the time we get around to part 3, we may be able to add the John Wick trilogy.
Oh, we will. It's already on the
to
list.
best. Yeah.
It's already on the list.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Well, let's wrap this up with a quote. This is exactly what Mr. Tillman said several years ago. He said, I did join the Army, but I joined a different Army. I joined the one with the condos and the private rooms. That was from Private Benjamin. Private Benjamin. So as always, we do appreciate you hanging out with us. Tim, thank you, buddy, for keeping us on track. And sorry we did not sorry we couldn't do the charades thing. We tried. Greg Tillman, thank you. And if you have questions or comments, info@C19TV. We will respond to them, or we will just chunk them. Until next time, I'm Noel T. Manning II for C19TV's Meet Me in the Movies. That's a wrap.